Located in downtown Toronto is the Scotiabank Arena, which is home to the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Raptors. The site where the arena sits today used to be part of Toronto's inner harbor in the mid to late 1800s. That harbor was infilled, pushing the waterfront further south to where it is today. In the early 1940s, the land became home to the Toronto Postal Delivery Building. The Art Deco building was constructed for about $2 million. Interesting fact, the building is actually made of Queenston limestone, which is quarried from the Queenston Heights area in Niagara Falls. The building was strategically built just beside Union Station to allow for direct access to the railway, which would provide easy loading and offloading for Canada Post. As Canada entered World War II, the building was handed over to the Department of National Defence and used for military storage, but was handed back to Canada Post after the war. The building would continue to be used by Canada Post until the 1980s, and it was basically just empty for a few years until it was purchased by the brand new NBA expansion team, the Toronto Raptors.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Raptors are born.
The Raptors actually played their first couple seasons at the Sky Dome. It's the Rogers Centre today. Built in 1999, the original name of the arena was the Air Canada Centre, or known by locals as the ACC. Thankfully, they retained the original postal building, which today is a great piece of Ontario heritage. On your way into the building, you can see the original structure and Queenston limestone, which is now incorporated into the newer parts of the building. Outside, there are some beautiful Art Deco reliefs themed around communication. Today, the building is undergoing a $350 million renovation to improve the facilities and the fan experiences. And part of those fan experiences is the introduction of the Scotiabank Arena tours. Tickets cost $30, and you'll meet your tour guide outside the doors in the Galleria, which is the area that connects Scotiabank to Union Station. If the Leafs or Raps are playing a home game on the day of your tour, you won't have access to that particular dressing room. And the day I did the tour, the Raptors had a home game, so I got into the Leafs dressing room, which we'll see later, but not the Raptors. The tour guide actually told us if you can pick a day where the Leafs and Raptors are not playing a home game, it gives them a little bit more freedom on the tour. So maybe you'll see something extra. We started our tour on level 100, basically right at street level. We then headed into the premium seats area and up the elevators to the Foster Hewitt media gondola, which is never open to the public outside of these tours. Having access to these areas was like a privilege. Getting to see how the pros, players and media alike, operate behind the closed doors in public areas is such an interesting experience, and it feels like a real privilege. Just knowing the iconic sports personalities that have graced these halls over the years, it's amazing to finally see all that in person. The press area is named after legendary play-by-play announcer Foster Hewitt. Known as one of the pioneers of broadcasting hockey games from the arena rafters, Hewitt was the announcer at the first game played at Maple Leaf Gardens. He called the game from his press box, which he helped design during the construction of the gardens. During the planning stages of his now famous press box, he climbed a building on Bay Street to figure out the optimal height for calling games. He discovered that the 5th floor was the best height. Foster Hewitt had no problem traversing the rickety footbridges that connected to the gondola, but others were not so brave.
Yes, I've been up in the gondola, but I just as soon go up in an airplane with no pilot as go up in that place.
I had to walk out on this catwalk. I remember crawling out onto the walk and taking 3 steps, and eventually I laid down on my stomach and crawled up 75 feet to the gondola, and I crawled backwards the same way.
From his perch, Hewitt would call the games, which were broadcast on the radio, and he became famous for his phrases,
"Hello, Canada and hockey fans, United States and Newfoundland,"
as well as a phrase that we may think of as being pretty common, but in fact it was coined by Foster Hewitt. Foster Hewitt was one of the pioneers of hockey broadcasting, and this gondola was named in his honor. Next, we got to peek inside the media room, where they produced the game night show and cut together replays like on the fly. As you move through the arena, you'll get to see staff hard at work getting things ready for game night. From restocking the bars to even switching the merch at the gift shops from Leafs to Raptors. Next, we got to walk the halls of the private boxes, and we even had an opportunity to explore one which was open. I'm not sure that's always available because the boxes are owned or leased out to customers, so you may or may not get access to a box when you're there. Along the way, you'll pass by restaurants and clubs and all sorts of stuff that you might not even know exists. Did you know there's a second basketball court inside Scotiabank Arena? There's also several restaurants and members-only restaurants or clubs in the arena. We stopped by Scotia Club, which is a members-only restaurant and lounge, but it is open to all ticket holders during concerts. There's also the MasterCard Lounge, which is an even more exclusive members-only lounge with all-inclusive food, a bar and premium seating, and entertainment spaces. For the rest of us, there's Real Sports and 11. Next, we headed courtside to see the players' benches and more media area, which was getting set up for game night.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and once again, welcome to Air Canada Centre as we embark upon a new era of Raptors basketball. For number 15, Vince Carter.
Basketball the way that it's meant to be seen. The Raptors now call this building home, and they're settling in.
Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand. Ay, we on overtime, you don't need to understand. Ay,
Fly up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win.
Moving fast, I've been gone, but you bring it back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop pursuing me, rock the boat. Keep it moving, rock the boat.
It's crazy, man. Like, we waited 24 years for this. Come on, 24 years, and we invented the game. We invented the sport.
Another cool thing that I didn't even know existed was the Path Social Club, where you can eat and drink right next to where the Raptors come out. On the other side of the club, it has the same setup for the Leafs tunnel. A cool feature is the smart glass, which they can make transparent or opaque. Like I said, the Raptors were playing that night, so we couldn't go in their dressing room, but we got to walk past all the Utah Jazz gear, which had recently arrived. They travel with a ton of stuff, even stationary bikes. After that, we moved into the Maple Leafs dressing room area, and of course, that was a highlight of the tour. First, we walked down the famous tunnel that the players used to get to the ice, and had a sneak peek inside the very exclusive looking Path Social Club, which is right next to the tunnel and features the same smart glass. When the dressing room doors open and you walk into the inner sanctum, it feels like a sacred space. Everyone on my tour, including the tour guide and our security guard, were all smiling ear to ear. It's not something I ever thought I would get to do, but here I am, entering the Leafs dressing room. The Toronto Maple Leafs played their first game at the Air Canada Centre on February 20th, 1999 against the Montreal Canadiens. The Leafs came out strong that night with a jazzy number by captain Kurt Browning. No wait, sorry. The team was led by captain Matt Sundin, who scored the second goal ever scored at the new arena. And the first goal scored at the new rink was by
Todd Warner, coming at 6:04 of the first period.
After almost 2 decades in the NHL, Warner stayed with the sport as a commentator and coach here in his home province of Ontario. The Leafs went on to win the game, kicking off a new era in Toronto Maple Leafs history. The tour was a great experience. What can I say? I would definitely recommend it. You'll get an opportunity to see behind the curtain, so to speak, at the player and media areas, but also at some of the exclusive premium areas reserved for basically the wealthiest individuals and corporations in Toronto. Hope you enjoyed this tour of Scotiabank Arena. If you did, please consider subscribing and check out this video next. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.